Now, this next one, this is probably one of the most like disgusting hip stretches that I've ever kind of created or come up with, but it works pretty damn well. Now I'm gonna use, or I can use, either this squat rack here or this heavy kettlebell. You're just gonna need an immovable object, excuse me. So find something that isn't gonna move on. You could be the corner of your couch, corner of a wall, door frame. If you have a heavy object, heavy kettlebell, heavy weight, whatever you have accessible to you. I'll talk you through what this is gonna look like. But again, because this is a pelvis class with a hip internal rotation focus, we're gonna put you in hip internal rotation. We're gonna get into a deep stretch in that capsule, but you are going to use and leverage your pelvis to get into it. And like I said, this is the part where you're gonna have to draw on some of the previous classes where you guys have been doing all this work to build, one, awareness of your pelvis, and two, be able to move your pelvis in different directions. You're gonna need to be able to, one, be aware of it, two, move it in those directions to get into this stretch and to get the most out of it. If you struggle with that, please go back to the other classes in this class series in Operation Human First, and then you can come back to this after. So, as you just saw with that other exercise that we did, hip internal rotation in this position would look like, typically look like me spinning my thigh inwards and kicking my foot to the outside, which would be hip IR, which most people know, right? Now, you can do that one of two ways. That's moving my femur on my pelvis. The other way we can do that is we can move our pelvis on our femur to create the same relative motion at the joint and get into the same position at a joint level. Here's what I'm gonna have you do to simplify it for you. Find your object, do that same motion that we just did, which is internally rotate, but here's what I want you to do now. I want you to walk yourself around your object until your foot meets it. Okay, because you were here, which is neutral, you internally rotated. Now to close the gap between my foot and my immovable object, I'm just gonna twist myself around till my foot finds the object, and then I'm gonna go a little bit further. So I'm just gonna twist myself around just a touch more, and you're probably already gonna feel a stretch somewhere in the back of that hip. Now, once you've done that, you've kind of brought yourself around, twisted yourself around, making sure that you lead with your pelvis. So one thing to bear in mind when you do these exercises, or this one in particular, don't think lead with your chest and get your chest closer to the object. We don't need this coming from your thoracic spine. Think about your belly button, think about your pubic bone. You're trying to bring that around that way. Now, once we've got there, we can increase this or fine tune it two other ways. So in addition to being in that position there, the other thing you can think about doing is if you imagine a laser pointed out of your belly button and out of your pubic bone. Right now it's probably pointed at the floor because you brought it around, but you didn't change the tilt. Now I want you to change the tilt. So I'm going to imagine that laser coming out of my belly button, out of my pubic bone. I'm going to turn it towards the right side. So I'm going to twist into it a little bit. Okay, and that, for me, if I take that pelvis, the opposite of that would be, just for visual, driving my pelvis up this way. I'm gonna twist it down and try and turn it towards that side so that my pubic bone and pelvis are now pointed this way. That's gonna increase that stretch. The last thing that I can do if I wanna get a little bit more out of it is I can take my other leg totally off the ground and put or sink as much weight through my right knee as I can, which is gonna push the head of my femur into the back of my hip and further increase that. And then I can play a little bit with kind of shifting forward or shifting backwards and go, okay, where do I feel it the most? Which for me is right here. And now I can stay here. So there's a lot of tweaking there. And again, you need to have awareness of what those movements are and how to manipulate your pelvis in order to kind of get into this position. But if you can get here, my goodness, you're gonna feel some stuff happening in the back of that hip. Now, if it's too much for you, you could always just place that other knee down, take a little bit of weight through your left leg. That's gonna offload it a little bit. You can twist yourself back out of it slightly in terms of rotating back this way, or you can imagine that laser that's right now pointing off to the right, point it a little bit more to the left to make it a little bit easier, more tolerable for you. But we're gonna try and keep you here for 2 to 3 minutes. Now, as I just hold you here for 2 to 3 minutes and you just breathe through that intense stretch in the back of your hip, I'm gonna walk you through what we're gonna do in this position, because you use it or lose it. We're not just gonna put you here, we're gonna actually use this position as well. So your object should be immovable, right? Mine is obviously movable, but again, just mostly for the sake of this video. It's heavy though, so it's hard for me to move. With your immovable object, what you're gonna do, we're gonna start a round of isometrics. Our first isometric, and I'm gonna come out of this just to show you, is gonna be you pushing your foot into that object. As if, like when we did our first exercise in this class, if you're with me doing the full class in OHF anyways, as if you're trying to rotate out of it this way. Okay, so you're trying to externally rotate your hip in that internally rotated position, but you are not gonna move at all. So once you do that, I don't wanna see your body orientation change. You are trying to stay exactly as you are. If I was watching you do this exercise, it should look like I'm watching a photo, not a video. Aside from maybe your face getting a little red, some veins popping out of your head, anything like that, I shouldn't know that you're actually doing anything. So we're gonna work up to your greatest, safest pain-free effort doing that. Then what you're gonna do is you are gonna try and keep that pelvis as still as you can, and you're gonna try and pull your foot off of your kettlebell as you think about trying to point that imaginary laser coming out of your pubic bone further to the right side of the room. So you're multitasking on this one. I'm gonna ask that you try to do both. If you need to just focus on one, go ahead, just focus on one. Maybe just think about trying to pull your foot off. On the next round, think about trying to point your pelvis to that side. See which one feels more effective for you. If you can multitask with me. I'm fine with either of those options, okay? Now you guys have been in this stretch for a little while now, so we're gonna get right into it here. I'm gonna try not to keep you here too long. You're gonna slowly think about pushing your foot into that kettlebell. Just give me like 20% effort to start. Work your way up to 40%, 60%, 80%, and your greatest, safest, pain-free effort. We're gonna hold this for 10 seconds here. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, get ready to multitask. 1, think about trying to lift that foot off of that object by rotating it out this way, not lifting it up this way, and also trying to point your pelvis deeper to that side, and you're gonna hold that contraction for another 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you're gonna relax. Now, if you manage to get your foot off of that object, you're gonna turn yourself around just a little bit more for the next set. You're gonna slow your breathing down, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Nice slow breathing here, ramp that nervous system back down. You don't get too long of a break, although if you need a longer break, please hit pause. And then we're gonna dive right back into it so that we can get you out of this position sooner than later. Join me here. Last one. Nice slow inhale. Solidify yourself. You will not move from here on out. 20% effort back into your object, trying to rotate out of the stretch. 40%, 60, 80, and your greatest, safest, pain-free effort, whatever that is for you. And then we're holding. Breathe. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now we're multitasking. Think, rotate that thigh inwards to bring that foot off as you turn your pelvis deeper to that side, and hold that for another 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do not immediately come out of it. Stay here with me for just a little bit. Slow your breathing back down. Try and let your body relax here. If you want to put your other knee down, you can to take the weight off, but I'd ask that you try and ramp that nervous system back down. Don't leave the stretch while you're still in fight or flight. Calm yourself and then come out of it, and you will probably, goodness, want to shake that leg out a little bit, okay? It's going to feel kind of funny. It's going to feel like it just did a bunch of work, because it did.